When the message of abiding in Christ dropped into my heart, the Christian life of mine that for so long languished in the mud pit of self-effort began traveling on the highway leading toward a deep, intimate relationship with God. And since that moment, nothing has ever been the same. Now, in this video, I want to share the single most important takeaway you need to understand when it comes to abiding in Christ, which ultimately answers the question, how do I keep Christ first in my life? Now, the concept of abiding shows up all throughout the Bible, but it's described in different ways. For example, in the Old Testament, the word delight carries with it the idea of abiding, as in Psalm 37:4, where it says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." Now, although the word delight doesn't translate into the word abide, in essence, the words make the same point, that a connection between you and God allows the power that is God's to freely flow to you. Now, in John chapter 15, Jesus teaches us about abiding. Now, I encourage you to read the entire chapter, but in this video, I only want to point out one verse, verse 1. In John 15:1, Jesus says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser." By Jesus saying that He is the true vine, what He means is that He is the true source of life. Jesus is the source of the source of the source. He's the power to make your life go. If you want true life, you can only find it in Him. So the first takeaway in answering the question, how do I keep Christ first in my life, is recognizing Him as the only source in your life. This means if you somehow have attached your life to money or relationships or worldly comfort with the hope of gaining a measure of status, identity, or security, you have to close the door to this life and reopen the door to Christ, allowing His life to once again flow through yours. Now, how do you do this? Well, it's as simple as closing and opening a physical door. Physically, you open and close a door with a simple push or a pull. Spiritually, you open and close the door with the words of your mouth. All you need to do is to tell Jesus that you're closing the door to everything that you've hoped would be the source of your life, and then tell Him you're opening the door that leads to His life, the one and only true source of power for living. Now, another important aspect of John 15:1 is this. God is the vine dresser or the gardener. Jesus is the true vine, the true source of life in the garden, but God is actually the gardener tending to the vine. The gardener's responsibility is to make sure that the branches connected to the vine grow proportionally, meaning that he does what he has to do today to ensure that months from now the branch will bear fruit. The number one responsibility of the gardener then is to make sure that the branches stay connected to the vine. So the life contained in the vine can then flow into the branch. Now, spiritually speaking then, how does God ensure that you stay connected to Jesus? Well, the answer is He brings just the right circumstances into your life to keep you grafted into Jesus. So the second takeaway in answering the question, how do I keep Christ first in my life, is to not fight life, but acknowledge that whatever you are experiencing is exactly what you need to keep you near to Christ. Now, I know that you might look at the hardships you're encountering and just wonder how such circumstances are fair. I mean, maybe recently for you, the more you draw near to God, the worse things seem to get. But God allows only in your life what you need to keep you abiding in Christ. Now, sometimes those things are good and sometimes bad. Sometimes you experience plenty, and other times loss, and sometimes happiness, but at other times suffering and sorrow. The point is not what is happening in your life, but rather your recognition that whatever you're experiencing right now in your life is needed to keep you near to Christ. So in answering the question, how do I keep Christ first in my life? You do so first with the words of your mouth. You must tell God that you're closing the door to anything that you're currently relying upon as the source of your life other than Him, and instead are opening your life to the one and only true source, which He is, Jesus. Second, you must tell God that you'll no longer fight what's going on in your life, but will realize that everything you're experiencing is needed to keep you abiding in Jesus. You no longer have to compete against life because you realize that life as you're experiencing it is being used by God to complete you. Now, why don't you take 30 minutes of uninterrupted time and just tell God that you want to keep Christ first in your life. You can start your time by just reiterating to Him your desire and understanding of the two takeaways that we just went over. And then you can take a sheet of paper out if you like and write down all the events currently underway in your life. Ask God how He's using these events in your life to ensure that you keep Christ first. If you feel comfortable, come back and share with us what He reveals by using the space below this video to comment. I'm David Stevens, founder of Belief Changers. As you go about your day, remember that no life lives better than the one that abides in Christ.